sometimes on social media, there's like this is the pathway. And actually, the strength is when you don't have a pathway, when you build your own.
Sure.
And so it's like no one can wake up and say, I'm going to be Leah. I want to be Leah. No. Or I want to be Morgan. I want to do what you did. No. That you're missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
The point is to figure out who you are
Yes.
and what your unique contribution can be based off of your unique lens. No one else could have accomplished what you've been able to accomplish. Hey everyone, I'm Morgan Debaun, a passionate entrepreneur and life advisor. With the Journey podcast, you'll discover that success isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. I'm sharing stories of amazing people who've taken control of their lives. Join me on my own journey to discover the secret sauce behind reaching success with permission from no one else. Welcome to another episode of the Journey podcast with me, your host, Morgan Debaun. We're here today with the lovely Leah. I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, everybody. And hey, you.
Hi. All right. So first I have to tell people like how we got here. So it was December. The world was ending because iguanas were falling off trees.
Scary time.
Like tornadoes. All of this crazy stuff was going on. And the weather across the country. And I was feeling like, sometimes, it's not like weather is new. Like, obviously, we all interact with the weather every single day. But I had a moment of peace in which I could actually receive, like, oh, this is about to get weird. Like, climate change is about to really, it is now here. And I'm sure it's been happening, obviously, because they've been telling us, Al Gore told us it was happening.
Yeah.
But I felt, like, very ignorant. It's like, I don't know what to do. Like when I was in elementary school, that's when we all started recycling and like the program started rolling out and it started to be part of education and I'm grateful for that. But besides recycle and use my own water bottle and turn off the lights and like I do all the things, I kind of was like, I don't know, what else am I supposed to do? Like not fly? Like what is, as an individual who cares, what am I supposed to do? So I made a little Instagram post and said, what am I supposed to do? Because that's what people do these days is you put your problems into the universe. And I, and I said, okay, who should I follow? Like, where should I go to get educated? And I'd say like 40% of the people tagged you.
Oh, that's so
in the comments. They were like, Green Girl Leah, Green Girl. What is your handle?
It's Green Girl Leah or Intersectional Environmentalist.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so then I went into the deep, dark circles of like tracking everything in your life and watching all your videos, which are so good and so helpful. And then was like, do you want to get on a random podcast with me and talk about it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I found out you're from St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Crazy. And then as I was prepping for the podcast, I found out that, George Floyd was a catalyst for you to take action.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but I started Blavity for the same reason. Mm. I was in San Francisco in Silicon Valley working at a tech company, and George Floyd was murdered, and I was sitting in my cubicle that Monday, Tuesday, like, stuff happened on a Saturday, and then things kind of bubbled. And I remember, having to go to meetings, having to go to conference calls, and, there was dogs in the hallway because I worked at one of those kind of startups, and beer pong and murder. It was like a hard thing. Mm-hmm. And for me to rationalize, and I said, all right, I got to build a plan to do this full time. Blavity had started on the side, but it wasn't like I'm ready to quit my job and get going.
Yeah.
And that's really when I made the commitment to say my superpower, my purpose, my unique value to the movement is not going to be protesting. Mm-hmm. Like I am 4'11". It is not going to be like running in the streets. It's going to be using my computer, using my ability to build platforms for change. And that was the beginning. So tell me about your story. What made you decide to get into this?
I feel like I was always kind of running around in St. Louis. I grew up in Florissant. I was just running around, like, catching toads and, like, little dorky things like that.
Missouri's outdoorsy, guys.
It's very outdoorsy. And thankfully I had, like, parents who really nurtured and supported that and, tried to sign me up for science camps when they could, or it wasn't until later I realized how much they went out of their way to expose me to Black doctors and Black scientists and Black environmentalists. So even when I was in predominantly white universities or spaces or private school later on, which was definitely a whole experience.
Did you go to private school for high school?
I did.
Where'd you go?
I went to MICDS.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was an experience.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
a time.
I didn't go to MICDS, obviously, or else we would have definitely
we
known
would
each
have known each
other.
other.
I went to Rosati Kane, which is still like kind of earthy, but it's all girls, so
yeah,
it's a little different. And not wealthy.
Yeah.
Not as wealthy.
That was an experience. But yeah, coming from like Florissant, Hazelwood, going to school in the DU, but I still had a certain level of confidence of like, I know there are Black scientists, even if we're not learning about them.
Right.
And I feel like that always stuck with me of, okay, I want other young Black girls and boys to have the confidence to know that they belong in science spaces and it's okay to be quirky and into earthy stuff. And yeah, so part of my story was studying environmental science when I went off to school, and I began studying it at the same time as the Ferguson uprisings, and it was just so deeply enmeshed in my brain because I was in St. Louis, I was in Florissant, so close to Ferguson during the initial uprisings, and then I had to leave about 2 weeks later to start my brand new major as an environmental science student. And kind of like you talking about the ping pong and the dogs, I'm in the middle of Orange County learning about the Clean Air Act, and I'm just thinking, how are you all so blissfully we're talking about clean air when we don't have the right to air and breath and every sense of the meaning of that. So I really just wanted to find ways to, one, raise awareness about the intersections of social injustice and environmental issues, but then also to take those lessons that my mom instilled in me of here are all the Black folks who have contributed to environmental history, because our environmental history doesn't just have to be a story of trauma and environmental injustice. That's so important, and I want to raise awareness for that. But I also want to show people Black park rangers, Black scientists, Black earthy people, so people can know that this is like the foundations of sustainability. I mean, Blackness is the blueprint in so many ways. So
always.
Yeah, but I was really inspired like you by, I would say, I keep calling it the largest civil rights movement of our time.
Our generation, for sure.
And I think 20 years' time, 30 years' time, people are going to reflect on it as that. I think right now, a lot of people aren't saying it, but it was. It was the largest racial justice movement of our time. And it definitely propelled me to act. And I thought maybe environmentalism can be my niche. I went to the protests. You know, I got my boots on, but I'm also like 5'2".
Yeah.
So I thought, like, writing.
Power to the little ones.
Yeah, the short girls. But I thought, yeah, maybe words can be my microphone and maybe design and utilizing social media and writing. So that's what I wanted to do as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important that like people hear, you know, women like us talk about this, because sometimes on social media there's like this is the pathway, and actually the strength is when you don't have a pathway, when you build your own.
Sure.
And so it's like no one can wake up and say, I'm going to be Leah. I want to be Leah. No. Or I want to be Morgan. I want to do what you did. No. That you're missing the point. The point is to figure out who you are and what your unique contribution can be based off of your unique lens. No one else could have accomplished what you've been able to accomplish. You have a unique perspective because you're from St. Louis. So you had a unique emotional attachment in the same way that I did, which is the only way you have willpower to push through the crazy world of building a brand and all the things and the public speaking and all of the pressures that come with a public life. But if we had been 20 years older, we wouldn't have had the same connections. So I want to just talk a little bit about, like, you just said something that was interesting, which is, yes, we should talk about the like inequities of the environment and how it disproportionately impacts Black and brown people and people of lower socioeconomic status and so many different things. But you also said something which I really want to get into, which is there's also an abundance and a rich history and a rich entitlement that we have as well. And what it reminded me of is actually our work we do with Travel Noir, where we've worked with the national parks to show actually Black folks go to national parks and we camp. Like that's actually a part of like our routine.
Outside.
We're actually physically outside.
Really outside.
And yet when you look in the media, like there's all the narratives of like Black people don't know how to swim. Black people are scared to go outside and sleep out like, and it's not true.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from your perspective, like what are the other things that you've seen from a media point of view, and then what is your perspective on like, no, that is a fallacy?
Yeah, I feel like working in the outdoor industry, so I worked at Patagonia for about 2 years, which was a fun experience. And then I was also a park ranger intern for 2 summers. So I was like out there
literally
being a park ranger. So one, it really makes me upset when people say statements like, oh, Black folks don't swim, da-da-da-da, stuff like that, without also tracing it back to its roots in some ways, or Black people don't want to go outside. And thinking about my family being like, why would we want to go into the woods? Like, that could be a safety hazard for so many, even just existing in the suburbs, existing in the city can be safety hazards to our lives. Yeah. So going off into the wilderness, it is scary, and it's not always a super safe space or holding space for the generational trauma surrounding water.
In America.
Right. There's just so much. Not even to get into that too much, but I think that context is so important, especially when that statement is coming from non-Black people. And then the thing is you know what, if you want to find Black surfers, you're not asking the right people, because I know Ebony Beach Club, shout out to Brick. I know Textured Waves, we're out there doing our own thing in our own way. Yeah. And I feel like that's an important part of it, is we do it, but it's in our own way. And our outdoor experiences are just as valid. We don't have to be summiting a mountain. Right. But even just sitting on my grandmother's porch, in downtown, St. Louis, or her little, she's got this really beautiful enclosed greenhouse porch in the middle of East St. Louis.
Your family sounds like a vibe.
They're very quirky. They're very, they're good people. Or even just being out in my grandma's backyard, which somehow she got turtles down to East St. Louis, just chilling in the backyard, and that's still a nature experience. So it looks different for us, and there's not a lot of media representation. It is increasing, which is really exciting, but it's we're out there in our own way. And then even if you want to find the park people, we're there. Yeah. We exist. Our stories are there. There were Black buffalo soldiers in Yosemite and Sequoia. There's a beautiful history of Black park rangers. So we are out there. We are outside in every, sense of the meaning.
Now I want to go look it up. I'm going to go look it up later. Tell me about, just to go back to the actions that people can be taking. What are the things when somebody's on your Instagram or the work that your nonprofit does? What are the themes or tent poles? What are the things that you're trying to get to the everyday person?
I would say all roads lead back to the environment, because this is our home, and I really want to let people know that, again, just because you're not out in the wilderness, nature is not something that we go to. We're surrounded by it every day. So you were talking about earlier with the iguanas falling from the trees, it's because we're in their ecosystem, and we're doing things that are kind of messing that up. And our homes are also a part of their ecosystem, and not thinking that our cities are separate from nature. We're in it and figuring out how to coexist with it, and then also interact with some of these really extreme weather events and things like that are going to be happening. So there's a combination of things that we're trying to teach people, but one is just that we should be stewards of the earth, because we're all a part of this great big ecosystem, whether we're in urban areas, rural areas, etc. I've been in so many of those spaces, whether it's rural Kansas to DC to here, and I know you've been probably even more places on the map. But I want people to know that, and then I want people to feel seen. So even if they're studying tech, one of our founding members, Kiana, has a tech platform about eco-anxiety and anxiety and environmentalism. We've got folks that are talking about fashion and environment, agriculture and environment. Again, all roads lead back to the environment, because this is our earth. So if you're making something, if you're just existing in this world, it connects back to the earth in some way. So I like finding those unique connections and people saying, oh, I never would have thought about this. But I'm I promise you, it can be anything, religion, race, age. I want to connect it back.
No, I'm going to be but the earth, though.
But the earth,
How is this connected to the earth, Morgan?
That's what I'm here for,
I love it. One of the things that I did last summer, and I'm really looking forward to doing it again, was planting my own food in my backyard. But actually, when I was in high school in North St. Louis, one of my professors, I was in high school, one of my teachers, my history teacher, who then wound up being the principal of my school, but Mr. McNamee, had a farm in North St. Louis, and the urban farm. And he kind of lived in like a co-op, and that was like the first time I'd ever seen a co-op. I was like, you guys all like live in the same
like, chill here,
building, and you cook dinner on one night and this other random family cooks dinner on the other night. And I was like, this is the way to live. Like, I want to live in a tribe of people. Obviously, I was in high school at the time, so like I didn't think there are a lot of things, but one of the things that I learned from that was about food deserts, and like how also, why don't we all just have like food in our backyard? Like, why can't we be growing food? If people live in California, live in LA, we have the climate to grow food. People should not be hungry. And so that was something that I've just always felt like angry about sometimes. Like, people should not be hungry when an avocado tree can grow in the backyard, and chickens actually can live in this climate, and we could just have a chicken coop like on every block, you know?
Every backyard.
Every house. Every house. So over the summer, I built out my little baby farm in Nashville. And I'm not very good at it, but what it has done is give me more sense of presence when I do buy food. That's the other thing I've been trying to do, is buying food that is in season, and like learning about what foods are in season, so that I'm not buying the food that's from Costa Rica.
Oh, you.
And then deciding like, oh, like this isn't in season, this means this is bought from some other place, like I shouldn't buy it. And then just like literally seeing seeds, and then seeds grow into edible things, and then eating that food, there's just such a joy.
It's a beautiful experience. And even for kids, like you said, there's a couple orgs in St. Louis. So there's Ujima and then Rustic Root Sanctuary, which is like out somewhere, I forget where. I was there for like a day and went to all these farms, and it was just like, oh my God, even field trips. Like if kids were just seeing this at an early age like you, it just like completely reshape the way that they think about food. And there's just something so sweet and rewarding about growing your own food, and also like cut down on a lot of carbon emissions and things like that.
Even like herbs,
purify
like
the air.
Basil, rosemary. Like we should just have it in the backyard.
Just everywhere.
Food for everyone. So I was shopping on a website. I'm not going to give brand promotion because they didn't pay me. So I was shopping on a website, and it said pay more to offset your carbon offset.
Yeah, I've seen a lot.
And I was like, what the hell does this mean? Are you going to go plant a tree if I buy this product? Like, what are people talking about? Is this just trendy, just like people saying organic? Or do you think like these companies really are? Is there like a regulation on that type of stuff? What does it mean?
It depends. So carbon offsets, as you know, they're so strange. And to get the consumer to pay more to have something that's better for the earth when they could just be doing the carbon offsets, that to me, I'm like, what are you doing? I see that with flights nowadays, etc. And I think it's a way for the consumer to feel good about themselves. But I feel like it would be even more impactful if like they're just doing it as a company instead of having to pay a premium to do so. Because I think that does confuse consumers to believe that you have to buy your way into sustainable living, when often the most sustainable thing is to like not get anything at all. But obviously that's not the case. We're going to get things. So I think companies, they do play tricks on people, and they know that sustainability is in right now. Millennials and Gen Zers prefer to buy sustainable products. It's like green beauty used to be, maybe there's a couple brands, shout out everywhere. I don't even want to say, shout out to Bare Minerals.
Bare Minerals.
They've been around for forever.
I met that founder. She's actually lovely.
Okay, good. That makes me happy.
Gonna be evil, but she's lovely.
So they've been around, we can
shout her out,
doing this for forever. And now like every brand is a green beauty brand. So it's harder, not everyone. So it's harder to suss it out because it's becoming the norm, and it's just getting more difficult. So some things, yes, like organic certification is usually pretty rock solid, but they have to take it one step further, and they're doing regenerative organic certification.
What does that
now,
mean?
Which is like this it nourishes the soil and sequesters and captures carbon from the atmosphere. So it's not just organic, but it's more. But it's so confusing. I would just say if people want to buy sustainably, try to support local artisans, even if that's literally your friend making t-shirts and like screen printing on them. Because supporting your local economy is the most sustainable thing, and it's not, not lots of travel that's involved, empowering sustainable communities.
Break it down like I'm in high school. Why? Like, why?
Okay, well, let's get into it. I feel like I'm at school.
No, tell me. Like, I want to know.
No,
I have
great.
my assumption. I assume you're saying this because things are flying in from other continents, and like the more we become consumerism, the more we buy things from India and China, and like that's expensive.
Yeah.
But please.
I'm like, you already know. But
they don't know.
The people don't know. So in school, they kind of call it like a life cycle analysis. And it's like a beautiful, circle. And they also call it kind of cradle to grave.
Okay.
Which sounds morbid.
Yeah.
But thinking about like the entire lifespan of an item. So for example, if you're getting like a reusable water bottle, and the difference between a glass water bottle and like sourcing aluminum. So you're starting at like extraction of the materials and like, is that sustainable? So the extraction of aluminum might be more than like getting recycled glass. So you're starting at what is the environmental and social impact of making the item, and then shipping the item, and then how long is that item in use? If it's an aluminum water bottle, that could honestly be around for the rest of your life, so maybe it's okay. And then to the grave. So what does how does it biodegrade? Does it take like 1,000 years to biodegrade? Even those really amazing like plastic water bottles that might last you a really long time, if you throw it away instead of reusing it and recycling it, it can sit in the landfill for like thousands of years. But then the other part you're talking about is a big part with transportation and the carbon emissions. So if we're buying things from really far away or sourcing materials from really far away, it's just so much, carbon to fly things back and forth, etc. So when you're supporting local artisans, like, okay, one of my friends is taking a poetry class, or somebody knows somebody who's literally like throwing down and making like cups and bowls, and that's just empowering resilient communities. But honestly, local artisans can also be expensive depending on where you're at.
It's true.
But paying that premium is also making sure it's made ethically and oftentimes pretty sustainably. So yeah,
I think that's the trade-off that is hard for people. I mean, even when I think about like the fast fashion like Shein and Fashion Nova and stuff like that, and it's like you order, I don't know if you've probably never ordered from it because you like sustainable, but I am a bad person sometimes, so I and so like I ordered Shein, and I got like a bunch of stuff, and it comes in this box, and they're all in individually wrapped little plastic things with this little thin clothing, and as I was opening, I was like, oh, this is bad for the world. Like, this company is bad for the world. And you can clearly like be like, yeah, if every single person duplicated this action, it wouldn't end well, because you're gonna have all this plastic, you have all these boxes. They're definitely fast shipping it over from China. This is not locally sourced anything. And the prices are so cheap that I'm like, the labor must have also been so cheap to even produce this stuff. So sometimes that's how I think about, okay, Morgan, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And like, if everyone duplicated this privilege that you have, what would the impact be on the world? That's kind of how I do my gut check. Yeah. So I don't order from there anymore. But even like Amazon, right? So I used to order on Amazon, and like a couple hours later I'd be like, oh, I need another thing, and I'd order it. Oh, I need another thing, and I'd order it. Now I'm less toxic, and I let things sit in my cart. I wait till I have a big cart, and then I order everything, and then I press the button that's like, use less boxes. So patting myself on the back.
Sustainable.
For being slightly more sustainable. But I'm curious, what are like the other kind of like life hacks or things that you feel like the average person can do?
I will say a lot of the people who are extremists about these things are oftentimes, not all the time, are not like people of color, where there's nuance. There's so much nuance. Or also like considering privilege, because I know a lot of like eco-influencers, etc., with the beautiful homes like this. And also my home is like this. My home is like white and beige and whatever. But I'm knowing, okay, they're getting sent, or we know they're getting sent so much sustainable. Nobody who can buy like $300 dollar t-shirts regularly.
Right, it's absurd.
And then when they shame people, that really hurts me because I'm like, y'all are being sent a couch.
You didn't even pay for it.
You didn't even pay for it, but then you're encouraging people to do this. And the reality is, like, you know, sometimes I do use Amazon or I might use Uber Eats or something like that, but it's always like a trade-off.
Uber Eats not sustainable?
I mean, some people are like, you know, driving in a car. They're really extreme.
Right.
But to me, I'm like supporting your local economy.
How was I going to get the food? I would have to still drive the car.
And I'm like, I'm tired. I'm working. I need food.
Yeah,
I can't walk every day. But yeah, I think that nuance is important. And I think sustainability culture can sometimes promote shame. Yeah. Especially shaming people of color even more. I don't know why that happens in this space. But it's like, do what you got to do. So even if the change is, okay, I'm waiting to buy from Amazon or this retailer until my cart is full, like that makes a huge difference. And I would love to geek out and do some sort of life cycle analysis on like how much carbon that saves you. Like if you wait a week, if you wanted to buy 3 things within a week on 3 separate days versus just buying all those items in one package, you're saving so much carbon that way. I love that. I like progress over perfection. I don't like extremes, and I want people to do the best that they can because I know a lot of people are just trying to survive. So I'm not here to shame them. And the fact of the matter is, like, especially when we're talking about the Black community, like we actually have a pollution burden. So we are surrounded by more pollution than we even emit, or we're like emitting less carbon than we're exposed to. And even when you talk about things like veganism and how it's better for the planet, in summary, it's because cows emit a lot of like methane, which is a greenhouse gas. It's just weird. But anyway, like more Black folks are actually becoming vegan and vegetarian, which is a positive environmental benefit. We do not emit the most like greenhouse gases or anything like that.
I see what you're saying.
So I'm like, the shame, I feel like it doesn't need to be there.
Right. In some ways, we are carrying the burden and we're contributing without getting the benefit.
Exactly. And like a lot of cultural values are also really sustainable. So even just things that my grandmother and mother did, like, you know, saving your plastic bags, like doing all those things, reusing your Tupperware. It doesn't have
a little baggie underneath your kitchen?
I have way too many bags still. Same. There's a lot. But
is that just a Black thing though? White people don't do that?
I'm like, they might.
I think they do.
Somebody tell us. Yeah, I don't.
Somebody let us know. Under your
they probably do.
Plastic bags.
But yeah, there's so many, you know, sustainable cultural values and things. So I don't want people to think they have to make these huge changes, especially when people are just trying to live, survive in the world that we are living in right now. So like, you know, people who are trying to shame you too much, I feel like it's not my thing.
I feel that. So. Okay, sometimes I go into doomsday territory, so bear with me.
That's okay.
So I read this article that was basically like, because of global warming, these are the places in the country or in the world. Did you read that article?
Oh, I feel so bad. You went down like a bad
I did.
Oh.
And I feel like it was on National Geographic or someplace legit. Like, it wasn't like a weird blog. It was like a legitimate publication. Yeah. And it was like, because of global warming, these are the places that will actually all of a sudden be like really good places to live. Canada was top of the list.
I like Canada.
I'm like, Canada doesn't sound so bad. Canada, and then it was actually interesting. They were saying like Detroit, like Michigan and Chicago, which is Canada adjacent in some ways because they're cold to us now, but 10 degrees warmer might actually be a relatively good climate. So I'm curious, doomsday happens. Where are you moving?
Ooh, definitely not Mars. I'm going to be one of those people.
You're going to say
sticking it out. I'm sticking it out.
You're going to stick to Earth.
I don't know. I feel like I'm like an Earthling or whatever you want to call it. I feel like there's people who are very pro-Mars, certain people who took over Twitter and things of that nature. But that's not me. I'm trying to stay here. I'm just trying to go to Mars.
I'm not going to go to Mars either.
No, and I believe
I'd rather go underground.
Honestly... Yeah, or in the air, like if they could like suspend us
I'd be down.
The air, I would do that. But okay, where would I go? I don't even know.
I'm banking on Costa Rica.
Costa Rica sounds great.
Yeah, it's got the rainforest. It's a self-sustaining like community. You've got papayas and stuff.
They're really sustainable.
So sustainable.
Yeah, maybe I'd go to Costa Rica.
Their government's really, really strict. Like if you're buying land, like I'm considering buying land and building out this stuff.
You're gonna farm.
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously. I don't know about farm, but I will definitely have fruit trees and everything. But they have these rules where it's like for every acre or half acre that you buy, you can only build so much and you can only build so high.
Wow.
And you can only cut down so many trees.
I love that.
You know? And I'm like, if every city and country did that, it would be incredible.
Yeah.
So I feel like Costa Rica is going to be my backup plan.
I could see that. And I don't know. There's also, you know, with the doomsday stuff, we'll see. I mean, not to make it even sadder than it already is, but when we look at natural disasters or even, you know, Katrina, there's a study that was like before and after the flood and like the resources, and the people who were wealthy received more resources than the people who actually needed it. So I am concerned when things like that happen, because there's climate preparedness that we should be doing right now.
Yeah.
And even when we look at Katrina, putting houses on stilts or moving people away or fixing certain infrastructure.
Yeah.
So that should be happening right now.
But even the wealthiest states, I mean, Texas is a mess. Every time it freezes in Texas, they're like, whoa, a freeze. I'm like, it did this last year.
What's going on? Or when it rained here, I was so sad because we could capture the rain.
Yeah.
And people are like, but don't you need rain? I'm like, we do. And if we had the infrastructure, we could have had enough water.
Water reserves.
So it wouldn't even matter if we had a drought, because we had so much water stored because it was just coming down. So I feel like we have to get real about infrastructure changes so the doomsday doesn't feel as scary.
Yeah.
And maybe it will look a little less severe and we won't all have to be in like Toronto.
Do you believe in the government? I'm just curious because like I hear you say that and I'm like, yeah, I'm with it. What am I supposed to do? Vote? Because like I will vote. I'm a voter, but I don't feel like they do anything when it comes to long-term proactive solutions. Certain cities, certain municipalities, like of course there's those amazing politicians that push it through, but the average politician,
oh, absolutely
no.
Yeah, I feel like I've been trying to get more into like community activism and supporting grassroots organizations and even things that are kind of interesting. It can be controversial in the climate space specifically, but for example, there's like so many government grants that might go towards environmental justice work, but bureaucracy is so slow. But then we see people like Bezos, who has a climate fund.
Right.
And that money, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, is going to Black-led environmental justice organizations.
It's true, as much as people give him shit.
Quickly.
Yeah.
And this is not pro him in any way, shape, or form, but it's like, okay, well, maybe if these corporations, who in my opinion, it's kind of climate reparations for causing harm to the planet with their businesses.
Completely.
If they got together, had some sort of fund that was going to support community organizations, I feel like, I don't know, they could revitalize communities in ways that the government couldn't.
I think that's definitely the answer.
Yeah.
But I am a capitalist. Yeah. So I clearly believe in that.
Like conscious capitalism.
Social impact for sure. But I do believe, I actually think that's my perspective as well. Is like, I think that yes, the government's going to do their thing, but they have motives of like self and staying in power. And I think corporations in some ways are profit centers as well. So we all have our jobs just to give value back to our shareholders. However, once people become very wealthy, then you have the freedom to do things regardless of power, and regardless of needing the cash because you're already rich, like Bezos, the Gates Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Love them or hate them, they've done a lot.
Yeah,
in a very
short
period of time.
Money. And there are very radical groups that I know, whether they're indigenous-led, Black-led, etc., that have received, funding. And it's just like, well, the government is not giving them this funding or making them compete for grants. So if there is, and there oftentimes is, kind of no strings attached funding with some of these corporations where, they might write it on an impact report, but they're not making them do a commercial and say that, like, Amazon is amazing or something like that.
Right.
And it's like,
and that's
his
personal fund, too. Like,
right?
I mean, Blavity, traditional venture capitalists said no to me when I went to fundraise. They didn't want to invest in this. It was social impact investors. It was really, really wealthy individuals that invested in a fund that was for progressive startups. And I was like, pick me. And they gave me money. And then all the people who were investors in the fund also then wrote a check. And they didn't write a check because they need the money back. And that was like what gave me the momentum to then, okay, now I have traditional VCs who are like very, money minded, etc. But you're right. I do. And I completely agree that like, if just a small group of people decide to care, that have an outsized amount of wealth from the rest of us, they could probably finance change faster.
They could probably stop the climate crisis as well.
I just feel like I want to believe in the government. I'm here for voting. I'm, of course, a progressive. I do think that if a small group of wealthy people made a decision to invest in social impact-based, I actually think social impact-based for-profits. I want to talk about your nonprofit in a second, but I think the for-profit, like B Corps and companies that have a social impact element but are also driving continued growth, because they will tie their products and services to consumers, and that will have a residual impact, right? And that is the cool thing about what I do feel like is happening, especially in the beauty industry and the fashion industry, is like people are like starting to talk about it more. So I like it. Keep it up, people.
Me too.
Tell me about your nonprofit.
So IE, also intersectional environmentalist. So it started in 2020, as many things do, but it was kind of a grassroots movement. We didn't know if we wanted to be an organization. And kind of like what you were saying, working at Patagonia, they were a really great model of social and corporate responsibility. And honestly, I was like, do I want this to be a B corporation or do I want this to be a nonprofit organization? And initially, we're like, okay, we're doing consulting, trying to help brands and other organizations reshape their strategy. And we want to pay people well, because we have mostly people of color on our staff. And sometimes nonprofits, to be completely honest, they do exploit their workers, or they're working super hard. So I had that in the back of my mind. And then eventually we started realizing, okay, there can be a middle ground and we can create the organization that we want to see, and we can, try to not be a traditional nonprofit. So having a 4-day work week and things like that, having really long, like breaks and taking time to rest, and fighting against like the nonprofit industrial complex, which people should Google. But so we started it really just because people were asking a lot of questions. They got really excited during the summer of 2020, I don't know if excited is the right word, of just how can I learn a little bit more about environmentalism, identity, and culture. And there's also just a lot of Black-led organizations that were like, we've been out here, we need a community, we need a network, we need a hub, we need a coalition. So we wanted to be that resource where people could say, I'm in Nashville or whatever, where is the climate community of people who look like me? Because I'm tired of participating in spaces that don't see me for who I am, don't care. And I think the central argument, a lot of people in the environmental space, whether academia, politics, corporate social responsibility, were saying like, it feels icky to be in a space that does not value my life.
That's right.
And there were so many environmental organizations that will take it to the streets for salmon.
Yes.
For the polar bears. Yes. For the dogs.
For the penguins.
But not for Black lives. So during that time, there was like a mass exodus of people that were saying, I cannot be a part of this. And we're like, well, we'll try our best to offer you a community that feels supportive of your entire self and makes you feel empowered and show you the organizations that exist. So that's how we started. Since then, now we're putting some structure to the grassroots.
It's like scale.
Boards, things like that. And we have just some fun programs. Mostly we do a lot of social media education and consulting. And then we just started Earth Sessions, which is a fun climate justice concert series. People come for the music. They get a little bit of environmental education. I love it. And learn about orgs that are in their neighborhood.
Where has that been? Or like tell me what the first program was like.
Our first program, our pilot show, was in Brooklyn. And it was super fun. There were 70 people. It was really intimate. And we had 2 artists perform. We brought in 2 local food justice nonprofits. And just seeing people interact in this space of learning and then also listening to music and being like excited to be there, it just gave me chills, and it still gives me chills, because I think about like what you said, there's so much doom and gloom, and showing people there's another way to gather, and here are the organizations that are actually making positive impact, and we can relax and rejoice together about this topic. So we've had 8 shows in our pilot year last year. Our biggest one was in the Bay Area with an artist named Ravina. She sings beautiful like R&B soulful music. music. And then we partnered with the Berkeley professor that gave a lecture on like ecofeminism.
Yes, I love
environmental racism.
Yes.
All this stuff. And then Ravina performed, and that was our largest show, which was about 400 or 500 people. And just to see the audience engage and like super stoked to learn about environmental justice, and then Ravina talking about it. It was so cool. And then we're planning a tour for this summer. So we'll see how that goes.
One of my favorite quotes from you is about, environmentalism is a joy. It's a joyful journey. Tell me a little bit more about that and what that means to you.
Yeah, I feel like there's enough doom and gloom in the world, and I'm not trying to be like annoyingly optimistic, but I just feel like I started thinking about my ancestors and how they find joy. My great-grandmother, still alive, she was a dancer. Wow. And getting to see her be joyful, my grandmother and my mother, and just realizing like I don't have a reason, I mean there's many reasons to not smile, because if they have gone through so much more than me, and they're still able to get up and dance at our family reunions and find joy and create these beautiful spaces, I'm like, joy is the one thing that can't be taken away from me if I don't let it. So I'm not going to let the system or whatever it is, the climate crisis that my people didn't even create, that is not going to steal my joy. So that's why I decided, you know what, we're going to start hosting climate concerts, and we're going to start giving away free books. We're going to have events where everybody gets food. It's free. Just learning from like radical organizers of the 60s, like even the Black Panthers and their food programs and things like that. Self-care was so important to radical organizing back in the 60s.
I feel like we lost that, our generation.
We lost it.
The generation before us, really not, it's not our parents, it's our grandparents. They were active.
Yep.
They were feeding the people. They were doing a lot.
They were feeding the people before school, after school programs, and like community care.
Yeah,
and that's what I want to return to in so many ways. So I feel like, just joy is the thing that can't be taken away from me. I'm not going to let it be taken away from me. And with other activists, trying to encourage them, because sometimes people, if you're in a movement space that's trying to get you to martyr yourself for the cause, exhaust yourself for the cause, those are not your people.
No.
Because a community is like a circle. If you need to take a break, the circle might get smaller. Yeah. But that's okay, because then when you come back, somebody else can pop out. And that's community care. And I just want that for more people to understand that you can be an activist, you can care so deeply about things, but not to let anybody steal your joy.
I agree.
Because it's kind of like an act of resistance in some ways. Like I resist by being joyful and not letting anything take away, my optimism.
I love it. And I agree with you completely. Like the idea that existing in itself is joyful. Right? And if you just start with that as your baseline, then anything else is just like, okay. But my baseline is joyful. So no matter what. So how can brands and corporations who are listening to this support you, support your nonprofit, support your ability to scale and have more impact?
I will say brands and corporations, intersectional environmentalists, we consult. We do that. So if you're trying to reshape your sustainability strategy to be more just as it should be, please message us. Our website is intersectionalenvironmentalist.com. We also are fundraising, so donations, especially we're an all women, Black and POC organization, and we receive the least funding in the environmental space in so many spaces. So donations are always appreciated, especially when there are no strings attached.
Unrestricted funds, please.
Thank you. And then also when we're trying to throw these joyful, innovative events, like we're trying to do a summer tour. It's going to kick off in August, hopefully coming to St. Louis and a couple other places, New Orleans, DC, and one other city that I'm forgetting. But that's going to take a lot for us to be able to fundraise, to be able to put on kind of the climate concert of my dreams. If you're interested in supporting, message me.
Don't message her, because her DMs will blow up.
Well, my email.
Yeah, email her.
I'm on LinkedIn, yeah.
We got to work smart over here.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful for you, and I appreciate you. Thank you for educating me and taking time out of your day. And I really do, it's encouraging to meet people who have made a commitment to things that us as everyday people don't always think about, and I really respect that. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.